Good evening, everyone. What a wonderful crowd we have here this evening. It's certainly cooler inside here than it is outside. If I could get everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation by Josh Cortez of the Westfield Friends Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'm always grateful to get to open up this time. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all that serve on the city council and those that are participating tonight. It's always great to live in a great community where we are always working towards better. So if you would you bow your heads as we pray together? Dear Lord, I do thank you for today. Thank you for this time to just gather and work through all the things that are going on in our great city. Lord, we give thanks for the ways that you've been faithful to this city, and we thank you for the ways that you've blessed us and continue to bless us as we work towards getting better and doing better. Please, God, we ask for your provisions as we work together. Give us the strength needed to make wise decisions. I ask that this space would be one where we can have ears to hear and eyes to see one another, and as we address our concerns and work together for the sake of the collective. God, we pray for peace. We ask for unity. We ask that you would be in this space with us as we work towards something more. God, we love you. We thank you and pray all these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Appreciate that. President Tam, would you please run the meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, may we get things started with the presence of a quorum.
Patrick Tam.
Here.
Kurt Wanninger.
Here.
John Dart.
Here.
Joe Deppner. We'll check back on him. Noah Herron.
Here.
Chad Huff.
Here.
Victor McCarty.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The approval of the minutes is our next order of business from August 12th, 2024. I'm assuming everyone had a chance to read those and review those. Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, but thanks for making the changes, Clerk Treasurer, to the minutes, and I would recommend making a motion to approve the meetings as presented today.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor Wanninger, seconded by Councilor Herron. Any further discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
I'm going to try again. Joe Deppner. Okay. Noah Herron.
Yes.
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. The next is we have the claims docket for August 26, 2024. We do need a motion and a second as well.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor McCarty, seconded by Councilor Huff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
John Dart.
Yes.
Noah Herron.
Yes.
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. I did fail to announce one change in the agenda this evening, just because I do what people that carry guns ask me to do. We'll be swearing in police officers, which we're very excited about, before our preservation of tree piece. I'm sorry, Chris, but police officers and public safety take first dibs. So, moving on, we have any residents to address wish to address the council this evening?
We do have one card at this time.
Great.
For Vernon Boland. Vernon, your time to shine.
My name is Vernon Poland. First of all, thank you to the city council members and to other city officials, to our police officers and fire department people, and to all our friends and neighbors. I wanted to talk about the Claiborne Farms development, and just in keeping with the overall comprehensive plan for the development of our community, especially the Southwest Washington Township. It seems to me that the plans as stated might interfere with some of the objectives of the overall Plan Commission. But recognizing the considerable amount of revenue it might bring into the city. I understand that it's not something that we might be able to say, don't do, but I would petition the city council to please consider, and the planning commission also, to consider having adequate buffers. My neighbors and I, when we invested in our properties, we have 5-acre properties with a home, and we're in a wooded area, and we are in the middle of 100 acres of woods around us that's going to be gone. And what we would like to see is an adequate wooded buffer of the existing woods between the developments and the homes that we have currently in place at the Copper Beach Farms. And I think that's a reasonable request. It may reduce some of the homes that, I know the plan calls for 1 home per 3 acres, and what we're looking at is about 2.5 homes per acre. So we would like to see that that would be considered, and that if any approvals are given to move forward, that an adequate buffer would be provided with keeping as much of the existing woods in place as possible. And I thank you for your time.
Vernon, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it, and frankly, we greatly appreciate a lot of your neighbors weighing in on the same topic quite significantly here recently. Well, Chris, Director McConnell, we'll start with the presentation. Swearing in. I'm just going by my notes. I got to rewrite things. I apologize.
Somebody had a really fun weekend.
No, I did not, actually. I moved in my son to college. So Mayor, sorry, my apologies.
If we could have the officers to be sworn in and come to the front along with Chief Keene. As they're doing so, I just wanted to say a few words. The women and men, actually this one may be just the men, but the men in blue who are getting ready to get sworn in are swearing their oath to provide safety to our community and to protect us. And I hope the residents of Westfield appreciate what that means and that the job they're getting ready to take on. I certainly do. We appreciate the sacrifices you've made to this point and the sacrifice you will make moving forward. And we just pray that God watches over you and keep you all safe in your duties over the next years to come. And with that, Chief Keene, you want to take the reins on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've asked each of the newly sworn officers to bring a family member up here. They're going to take part in this ceremony today. What I'm going to do first is read the oath of office. I'll pause during it to let you catch up. When there's the blank spot, you'll insert your name, not mine or someone else's. And if you forget where you're at, it's on the wall there. So we'll try to make this painless. So would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, insert your name, do solemnly swear that I will support, uphold, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Indiana. And that I will honestly, faithfully, and impartially execute the duties assigned to me as a law enforcement officer of the city of Westfield, Indiana. To the best of my ability and always in accordance with existing law and department general orders, so help me God. Ready to help me out, bud? Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief Keene, and thank you, most importantly, to committing and choosing to serve the citizens of Westfield, and also to your families. I know this is not necessarily a 9-to-5 job. This is a life commitment, and we greatly appreciate all of our public safety, but particularly tonight, our new police officers. We thank you very much so for choosing Westfield, and we hope to honor our commitment to you as well. Thank you. And Director McConnell, now you can start.
I don't know how trees are going to follow that, so I'll do my best. For the record, Mayor, councilors, Chris McConnell, Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Westfield. I was asked by the mayor to speak a little bit on Westfield's private development landscaping standards in regards to tree planting and preservation, and hopefully bring to light where some of our shortcomings are, and talk a little bit about what we can do moving forward to help alleviate some of these problems. So with that said, the goals of the presentation are to review the current standards that we have in place, identify for council what's missing, identify what those issues actually are, and then potentially give you guys some issues or some solutions, including one that will be brought as a UDO patch later this evening. So let's get into the meat of it. So tree preservation, you guys know better than I do that tree preservation's been a hot button topic in Westfield for the last several years, if not longer. We hold developers currently to these standards that you see before you, that they take a reasonable measure to design around significant trees and try and protect those trees, to inventory those trees that are going to be preserved, to submit plans to us, so they can't just say, we're going to preserve this tree, we're going to keep it here. No, they have to submit the plans and show us what they're actually going to do to preserve that tree, require them to replace any of those trees that die within the first 5 years. One of the most important ones is they receive a credit of one tree for every tree they save. And that doesn't matter if it's a tree that's 24 inches in caliper or it's a tree that's 10 inches in caliper. They're only getting a 1-for-1 credit for that. Establish, obviously, a tree preservation easement, which means those trees can't be cut down. And then during construction, preserve those trees as best they can. Moving on to street trees, we require all major subdivisions have street trees in an 8-foot green space, planted at a spacing that you see before you. They can be on one side of the road, but more often than not, they're on both sides of the road. Put this table in here. Keep in mind the note. I won't read the whole thing, but any planting outside the minimum lot planting can be included in this table or counts towards this table. So foundation planting, buffer planting, it all counts towards this table. And there's a couple things that I'll point out that are specifically missing from this table that are causing us great issue at the moment. So just to point out a few things, single family residential, they require 3 trees per lot. All right? Multifamily residential, 2 trees per residential unit. So think about how many trees that is. And then obviously the list goes on and on. There is one that we're getting more and more into as we grow that is not on there, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So here are the issues. The biggest issue as far as tree preservation is concerned there are no strong incentives for developers to preserve trees. It's a 1-to-1 trade-off, and we're asking them to do a lot more and spend a lot more money in order to preserve those trees. They have to go through a tree inventory. They have to give us a construction plan. They have to do all these things, and they're only getting credit 1-for-1. Doesn't matter what size tree it is, they're just getting 1-for-1. There are no multifamily developments that have met the landscape standards. More often than not, they can't get to the number they're required to plant. There are no mixed-use standards. We're getting more and more into mixed-use developments, and we have no standards on the books for those mixed-use developments. I'll present some solutions moving forward to you guys. And then landscape, specifically tree installation, is not inspected in the field. We don't know about correct sizes. We don't know if it's the tree that's actually on a plan that's going in the ground. We don't know if it's installed properly. Are they taking the burlap off of it? Are they taking cage off of it? We don't know any of that because we don't have anybody inspecting these things when they go in the ground. So to show you some of these issues, one of the biggest ones is developments are getting away with not planting enough trees. You guys see the trees on this plan? All right, so this is a development of 190 residential units. So it should have how many trees? Like over 300, right? It has 8. And the landscaping plans were written out of this development through the PUD. They're not required to follow landscaping plans at all. And both of those pictures are from the same development. The next big issue is too many trees. This is about a 7-acre, the one on the left is about a 7-acre site. They have about, if I remember correctly, a little over an acre and a third of plantable space, and they're planting over 250 trees. That's unsustainable. Those trees won't survive. There's just no way. There's too much hardscape. You're creating a heat island for them. You're going to kill them. So we're really doing the community any good by planting this many trees on this type of development. In comparison, the development next to it, it's about an acre and a third. It has less than a third of an acre of plantable space, and it has 44 trees planted on it. So we're getting into this situation where we're either planting too many trees in the development or we're planting not enough, and we're not giving developers a way to make up for those and be sustainable and responsible in how they're planting the trees, but still giving the community the number of trees that we deserve. So with that said, here are some of the proposed solutions. The first one on the list will come to you later this evening in a UDO patch. It is a tree bank program. This is common in large municipalities across the country. Basically what it is we look at the landscaping plan, we determine what is a responsible number of trees, and then the gap between that number and what the requirement is, developers are required to pay a fee into a bank, and the community is able to use that money to plant trees elsewhere in the community. We could plant them in parks, we could plant them on street right-of-ways, we could plant them in city properties, we could plant them as street trees to replace street trees in neighborhoods that have died. We can use that money moving forward to do that. So that will come before you in a UDO patch later this evening. Some of the other proposed solutions that I am working with community development on to get brought to you are additional standards for mixed use developments, so they aren't getting away with planting no trees. Increase the tree credit through preservation to a minimum, and I would go further than this, but the minimum would be 1.5 trees for every tree they saved. And then finally, additional staff to review tree inventories and to inspect tree and landscaping installation in the field. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's really meant to start the conversation of how we can do a better job of providing and preserving the trees that are in our community. I appreciate your time. If you do have questions, I'm happy to answer them as best I can this evening.
Kurt?
I have one question. On the tree preservation of existing trees, is there standards in regards to the quality of the tree or the health of the tree and
Absolutely.
not getting rid of the Osage orange or the scrub brush?
Absolutely. That is one of the reasons we require a tree inventory. And that inventory not only catalogs the tree, the species, but also the health of the tree and whether or not it's actually worth preserving. Because what we don't want is preserving a whole bunch of trees that aren't healthy and then pushing it off onto the HOA later on for them to have to clean up this mess. Cut these trees down, because cutting trees down, removing trees, it's not a cheap endeavor.
And looking at the list of invasive trees and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
John?
You mentioned there are no incentives today for a builder or developer, so that's great to include those. What happens when a builder or developer doesn't meet the guidelines today? What is the city doing if there's not enough trees planted? And it was discussed that this is what they would.
Yep.
What they would actually do.
My best answer for that is they're going back to APC or somewhere to get a variance. That's my best answer, but I'm not 100% sure about how accurate that answer is.
Yeah, Chris, on the one section that talks about landscape, specifically tree installation, the species per plan, installation size, overall tree health, when and how would you propose to do that activity?
That would be done on site. The builder would have to schedule inspection when the trees arrive on site, so those trees could be inspected and reviewed to plan. And then it would be a random inspection for installation. Whoever's doing the inspection, usually it's a ArborCare certified person. They would come out, they would pick 3 trees randomly, let's say. They would dig up to make sure that the cage is missing and the burlap has been removed and they were planted to plan and to ArborCare standards.
And the challenge, you alluded to it earlier, I have several neighborhoods, one in particular that's just absolutely horrendous on a HOA turnover. Trees weren't planted as promised, as
Correct.
drawn up. The installation was atrocious. The maintenance was, we just mow wildflowers. And now the HOA's stuck with the bill, if you will, in this one particular very real situation. So these types of programs, I hate to say that this is fantastic. I just wish they had that as well.
Absolutely.
We can't necessarily fix the past, but moving forward, there is some neighborhoods, particularly my council district, get very parochial, that HOA transfers in some cases have been phenomenal, to be frank, and then others have been outright abysmal. And a large part of this is due to these types of issues. So, but please continue to, frankly, bring us these better ideas to move forward. I think all of us are interested in them. I can tell you that I very much so am, trying to make sure that people buy into some great neighborhoods in Westfield. And frankly, a lot of commitments are made, and we want to make sure that they're followed through as well. But trees are definitely one of the key items on the list, particularly when you see dead trees nonstop in some areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yes, sir.
Hey, Chris, I would assume that there's a handful, maybe a few more, of nurseries that provide the majority of trees for builders and developers. And my question is there an opportunity to work with these nurseries, because they're likely doing the installation, right?
Nurseries usually just provide the trees. It's usually a landscape company that's doing the installation.
Okay, so so is there an opportunity to work with the nurseries and the landscape install teams, and I guess partner with them to help them understand what our standards are as well?
Absolutely. You know, the more people we bring to the table to get everyone on the same page, that everyone understands what's expected and what's required,
Right.
the better off we're all going to be. So absolutely, there is the opportunity to have those conversations.
Does this require, this proposal require a head count as well? Were you talking about that at one point?
There is, as part of my budget, I've already began to start this process. One of the things I requested is an additional head count, and that would be an urban forest specialist. And that would be one of their
Responsibilities?
duties, is to go out and inspect these installations and these landscape plans. It is, I hate to say it, it's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, one person can only do so much, but we're going to take it where we can get these wins and get these programs in place.
Chris, how will these commitments by developers be communicated and brought forth in front of the council for either approval, denial, or maybe if they have issues with what you're suggesting or recommending?
That's a good question that I don't have the answer to at the moment.
Any other questions or discussion this evening? Director, we greatly appreciate your work on this, but more importantly, we look forward to all the future work you're doing too on this item as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to old business this evening. Resolution 24-115 is the fiscal plan for the Winterberg annexation. Ordinance 24-28. Mr. Collingwood.
Yep. Thank you, President, members of the council. For the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. This introduction will also apply to the adoption consideration of the corresponding annexation ordinance, in which is Ordinance 24-28. So the item before you is a 100% voluntary annexation request for the recently zoned Winterberg development area. The Winterberg Planned Unit Development District was established via approval of Ordinance 24-05 at City Council's April 9th meeting. The total compiled annexation area is about 206 acres in size. The parcels are generally located at the south side of 193rd Street, west of Casey Road, and north of West 186th Street, seen on the exhibit shown on the screen. This item received a first reading and public hearing at the City Council's August 12th meeting. It is eligible for adoption consideration at tonight's meeting, where the corresponding resolution has also been fully compiled. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions this evening? So we have, Mr. Collingwood made two presentations there, but we need to do a motion and a second first on the resolution 24-115. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 24-115.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor McCarty, seconded by Councilor Herron. Any further conversation? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Noah Herron,
Yes.
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Should I try for Joe?
I don't think
Joe?
Joe's making the Zoom call tonight.
All right, I will stop doing that. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much. Ordinance 24-28, which Mr. Collingwood previously commented on as well. We need a motion and a second for that as well.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 24-28.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor Herron, seconded by Councilor Dart. Any further discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Noah Aaron.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to our next proposal this evening, ordinance 24-29, which is the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, establishing a merit system for the Westfield Police Department. I know we have Chief Keene here this evening, as well as our city attorney, Ms. Glazer. Chief?
Mr. President, members of the council, Sean Keene, Chief, Westfield Police Department. I know I spoke at the last meeting on the benefits of establishing a merit system for the police department. I think it moves us further ahead as a city. I think it puts us in line with our fire department and our other local law enforcement within Hamilton County. But I know you've now had a little time to look at it, and so I'm here if you have any questions whatsoever regarding the ordinance.
Any questions or discussion for the chief this evening?
Just in addition to what you said, it's also going to be required to be voted on per state statute here in a year or so.
I would let the city attorney address that portion of it.
Yeah, so if you guys pass this, then the Board of Works, either at their meeting on Wednesday or next month, will give at least 3 weeks' notice to all of the active members, and they will get together, and the majority of the members of the active members of the police department do have to vote for this, for it to go into effect as well. It's like a closed-door written ballot meeting, which is the members.
Thank you.
Any further discussion this evening? Thank you, Chief. We need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 24-29.
I'll second.
We have a motion made by Councilor Huff, seconded by Councilor Wanninger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Sorry, this one was left off my list. I'm just getting it added in here and in the right order.
No worries.
Thank you. Okay, Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Noah Aaron.
Yes.
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to new business this evening, we have ordinance 24-44, which is the North Point PUD amendment for Commerce Part Area 3. Mr. Crabtree.
Filling in for Dane here.
All of
Sorry.
a sudden I looked up.
Sorry,
and went,
President.
Wait a second. What? My eyes aren't that bad, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, President, members of the council. Again, for the record, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you is a proposed amendment specific to the Commerce Park Area 3 section of the North Point PUD, which is made up of multiple lots and portions of lots approximately 36.6 acres in size, located generally south of the intersection of State Road 38 and East Street, more accurately reflected in the location map on the screen. The proposal is to modify architectural standards for primary facades of buildings that would be located in this area, along with increasing the maximum building height from 35 feet to 40 feet. Matt Skelton of Church Hill and Antrim is present this evening for first reading. I don't believe he plans on making a presentation. Public hearing for this item is going to be next Tuesday, September 3rd. I and Matt Skelton will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions this evening? We will move on then. Ordinance 24-45, which is the Claiborne Farms Phase 3 PUD. Ryan, you're on again.
Yep. Good evening, Council. Again, the last time, Ryan Collingwood with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you this evening is the first reading for the Claiborne Farms Kimblewick Phase 3 Plan Unit Development District. The rezone request is to establish the zoning for an extension of the existing Kimblewick residential community. The subject real estate is about 108 acres in size and is generally located north of and adjacent to 151st Street and east of Shelbourne Road, seen on the location map on the screen. The residential development is proposing as many as 225 homes within two distinct areas, Area A and Area B, as identified within Exhibit C of the proposed ordinance 24-45. Area A will have age restriction regulations similar to the existing Kimballwood community, while Area B will not designate area age restriction regulations. Area A will be capped at 204 homes, while Area B will be capped at 21 homes for context on each area's proposed size. Additional exhibits embedded within the proposed ordinance may be viewed, in which address architecture and aesthetic elements associated with the development. This petition is having its council first reading tonight and a public hearing at next week's Advisory Plan Commission meeting on Tuesday, September 3rd. The petitioner and their representative are both here tonight. They do not plan on making a formal presentation. They are available for any questions, as am I, if you guys have any for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if who from the petitioner is available for questions. I don't know if John or who's going to handle that. And just briefly introduce yourself so people know who you are.
Good evening. John Dabashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner, Pulte Homes of Indiana. Be glad to address any questions that the council had at this time. We are, to add on to what staff had indicated, we have two neighborhood meetings, one scheduled for tomorrow evening, the other scheduled for Thursday evening. The one for tomorrow evening is geared toward existing Kimballwick residents. The one for Thursday is our notice list of owners for the public hearing next Tuesday in front of the Plan Commission, September 3rd, 7 o'clock in this same location. That's the add-on to what staff indicated for the benefit of the public here this evening. We came this evening, we heard some comments at the beginning of your meeting when the public had an opportunity for input, and would entertain any additional questions the council may have. We're continually taking input. We'll utilize the public hearing next Tuesday in front of the Plan Commission to continue that process. And then we're back in front of the Plan Commission at earliest third week of October for a workshop meeting after we can analyze everything we've received from the council, from staff, from the public, and come back and start doing the hard work of massaging the plan to better address or best address those comments that we receive.
Yeah, I thank you for that. This area, we received quite a bit of feedback. Frankly, I've spent a considerable amount of time, but then also spent a considerable amount of time in an afternoon visiting with some impacted residents as well. I think a lot of their concerns, we've shared, to my knowledge, all the emails and different feedback channels that we've received with Pulte and yourself, trying to make sure that those are heard. Unfortunately, I have a long planned trip, so I'm not going to be, I literally leave tomorrow morning, but the pieces that we're concerned about, at least I can say I am concerned about, and residents are consistently expressing, are setbacks, tree preservation, how those may or may not work in terms of where you start counting. They're concerned about trail connectivity, roads coming in and out, amenity pieces in terms of capacity, many of which I've talked directly with Pulte about to convey that as well. But a lot of well thought out comments from residents, frankly, with significant research as well. They take great pride in their neighborhoods, and frankly, I would tell you that the neighborhood's built too darn well. So in a positive sense, that it is phenomenal what some folks are able to enjoy, the current Kimballwick residents. I was really blown away. I've walked that neighborhood quite a bit, but I usually go to front doors. And that backside on some things that are rather significant that Williams Creek did with wetland creation. A lot of the retention ponds are done with a great amount of care, and those residents really want that type of to continue. I think on some of the drawings, particularly working with you quite a bit, those trail pieces aren't there and walk paths, which I know that you'll make sure those are there, but trying to make sure that folks do see that in those drawings as we move forward, I think is absolutely critical. I know the mayor is talking about, although just so everyone knows, we haven't done anything with a golf cart ordinance. Don't freak out, but that trail connectivity piece is significant. Then also, a lot of residents brought up consistently, some talk to each other, not all of them could be talking to each other, about how Kimballwick was built currently and then how it's going to be built moving forward, and those details of what they had to follow for their current homes and what they may follow in the future as well. But it is an impressive neighborhood with impressive people, which is a great asset for us to have in Westfield. But at the same time, a comp plan, or the need for a comp plan too, this is outside of this particular development, but it does cause a lot of us, and I can speak for myself only, to really need that need as we move forward. Not necessarily talking about this proposal, but these types of larger proposals do call out the need for us to kind of revisit that in a larger sense, not just for this particular one. But I do have confidence that you'll get a lot of constructive, intelligent feedback pretty consistently. Frankly, the quality of conversations and the emails that we've received have been voluminous for us here, at least this year, has been pretty significant. So I'll turn that over to anyone else. Not really a question there, so my apologies, but.
Yeah, just real quick, since we have many residents in the audience, for the benefit of everyone, this will be going to APC. We'll be working through a lot of it. We all have concerns. I have concerns. And to touch on what Patrick said, it is a beautiful area back there. I took the time to walk back on the back path with the L-shaped lake, and I took up my drone so that way I could get a nice bird's eye view of the land. And yes, the trees are packed in with it being an old tree farm, so there might be some opportunity for thinning out a little bit, just that way we can try to help as many trees survive as possible. But that's all to say that, yes, I'm looking forward to diving into this at APC. So thank you for being here, though.
Any further conversations, questions this evening? Moving on, we thank you very much, and we look forward to working through the entire process. I know many people are as well. So our next order of business is ordinance 24-46, which is the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, approving and adopting an interlocal cooperation agreement. This will be presented by our city attorney, Ms. Glazier.
Thanks. So I know this has me presenting, but I'll actually have the chief present on this. Just a brief intro: interlocal cooperation agreement between two political subdivisions, the city and the school. That's permitted by statute, so we made sure this has everything required in that. I did draft it as an ordinance instead of a resolution because it addresses traffic regulations in a sense. And we also have a request from the schools that you all suspend the rules and pass this on first reading because of the urgency and the importance of this that the chief will touch upon. I can answer any legal questions after as well.
Thank you, Chief. Sorry.
Mr. President, members of the council, Sean Keene, Chief, Westfield Police Department. One of the first discussions I had when I moved here as police chief was with the school regarding the traffic issues. So this interlocal agreement will help both the school corporation and the police department. And to kind of give you some background on that, we have 8 locations that both morning and night, or morning and afternoon, that we staff with off-duty police officers that work those intersections. That's becoming more and more difficult to make sure we have officers there all the time. Sometimes we're having to pull them off of the shifts to make those coverages. At the same time, it's costing the school corporation, significant dollars to pay a policeman to cover all these intersections. So with this agreement, we've been working with the school corporation to identify some of those areas that we think and they believe their own staff could manage. And I think we've come to the conclusion that it'll be about 3 of the 8, leaving us with 5 initially. I've spent my time at Terre Haute. We staffed all our intersections with civilian staff, retirees, every intersection. So to have police officers, any of them, was kind of new to me to begin with. I understand the urgency to try to get it done, but I also want to do it safely so we make sure we're not changing everything all at once. So I think this is a good first step. It allows us each to make sure that, we're doing the right thing, or, and that this is done in the proper way with the right training. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about what we're trying to do here, but basically we're trying to provide benefit to both the school corporation on the financial side and the police department as far as staffing.
Any questions or discussion this evening?
I've got a few, but Kurt, go ahead.
Councilor Woniger.
How does the school plan to staff these? Are they going to hire off-duty officers? Are they going to hire a service, or are they going to train internally employees to do that?
It's my understanding that they're going to train their existing employees to do that. I believe it's some of the maintenance staff at our last discussion.
Okay. I saw it was only approved for this first year, 2024, 2025. So is this something that's going to come back annually, or is this as a trial for the first year, or?
Well, the way it's written is that it's a one-year agreement with the opportunity to extend it another year. My question is, will this come back to the council each year, or is it?
It would have to, the way it's written. I think everything's written so that it's 1 year, and to make any amendment, any change, to renew, it would come back as any interlocal would. I think it was originally drafted kind of like an automatic renewal, and I think for us, it's good to do it for 1 school year and see how everything's going, and then it would come back.
And then just one follow-up to that, for the certification or training associated with that, who's going to validate that and hold that information and ensure those individuals have been trained?
I think we agreed to provide the training to the school corporation and make sure that it won't be, hey, this is yours. The idea would be that we would work with the officers that work those intersections and train that staff, stay with them for a couple days to make sure that they've got it down before we step away. And we're not just looking at now as the school has additional plans for additional schools. This problem would just be compounded further down the road, the more intersections we become responsible for. So I think this is a good first step, a responsible step to take. And I could see, let's try it for a year. Let's see that it works out for everybody. If it does, then we can approve upon it.
Is there or will there be a training manual in place so that when new schools come on board, new school employees come on or choose to do this activity, that they don't have to come back to the police department to be trained? It can be an internal training program. Would that be the goal?
I would be speaking on behalf of the school corporation to say that, so I would be hesitant to answer you. But my goal would be to help them, provide them with whatever training they need, so we have a safe environment for the kids. And whatever that means for us, we'll do that.
Okay. Another question that I had is that this stated that there would be a liaison from the school and a liaison from the city. Help me understand what the role of those liaisons would be and who best would potentially fill those roles as a liaison.
I added that in because I think it's important with something like this. There have been so many different people involved. I know I've been involved in the school's attorney, but I think once it starts going, it would be something like the chief or one of his assistant chiefs that's actually involved and knows what's going on, just so there's always a point of contact. And if there's any issues, you know who to go to resolve anything quickly.
But that needs to be done quickly as well, right? I mean, if we're approving this tonight, we need to move on that, I would assume?
Yeah, to answer your question, kind of who I have in mind, Assistant Chief Grimes is kind of right now overseeing like the staffing as far as when we're posting these positions. And he'll continue to make sure if we have vacancies that in our end on the police department, we're going to make sure we get somebody there to cover that. So he would be one of the point of contacts. And then we have Sergeant Doherty, who's over our school resource officer program and also works closely with the school corporation. So we already have personnel in place that work closely with them. We may decide as this goes forward, that one may take one role and one the other.
And just so, Councilor Herron?
Something that popped into my head, the people that will be working with the police department, will they be drug tested at all, just to make sure on that aspect of it?
So these will not be police employees. They will be school corporation employees subject to whatever backgrounds and drug testing that the school corporation does.
And speaking as somebody that drives a certain 14-year-old to school to save her hair on certain rainy days, amongst others, your police officers do a great job that are out there. And frankly, some days when one of them is missing and there's a sub, there's a little differences at certain areas. Recently, though, at the high school, it does appear that they're actively training people, at least in appearance, when I've dropped off or picked up my daughter at the high school from different perspectives. Versus, and then at one time there appeared to me the police officer was already trying to walk through some different pieces. I believe Mr. Hall, who's in the administration, great individual, great family, is also kind of overseeing some of that, at least from what I was able to observe and some of the duties that he has. I don't know if that's correct.
Yeah, he's
Chief.
been a big part of this
So,
agreement.
but
Yeah.
those are the pieces. I know there's a financial issue, but then also just a growing need. But then when you express to myself and Councilor Dart about your staffing issues, our city's staffing issues, that it's almost a mutual agreement here at this point, which we appreciate. But at the same time, I think we're all concerned about getting kids to and from. It's quite a feat done twice a day at all of our schools, getting kids safely into school and out of school and safely home. So, but we appreciate your hard work, and also Caitlin for all the different legal issues that you had to work through as well, some of which we won't talk about, but okay. Thank you. Any further conversation? So there's a request to suspend the rules to pass this evening. Many of you are familiar with that. We need a motion and a second and a vote on the suspension of rules here first. So can we entertain a motion to suspend the rules?
Motion to suspend the rules for ordinance 2446.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to suspend the rules made by Councilor McCarty, seconded by Councilor Huff. Any further conversation on that? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Chad Huff,
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Noah Herron.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules passes 6-0.
So we've suspended the rules. Now we need a motion and a second as it pertains to ordinance 2446. We have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve ordinance 24-46.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Huff, second by Councilor Herron. Any further discussion? Seeing none, may we call the roll?
Patrick Tam.
Yes.
Kurt Wanninger.
Yes.
John Dart.
Yes.
Noah Herron.
Yes.
Chad Huff.
Yes.
Victor McCarty.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much. Our next order of business this evening, I would just remind everyone, it's still new business, is ordinance 2447, which is amending provisions in the Westfield, Washington Township Unified Development Ordinance as it pertains to mobile food vending. I believe we have Ms. Gillingham here this evening to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. And also a PowerPoint presentation. All right, so quick presentation for you guys on our mobile food truck ordinance. So as you know, I think 2 months ago, the council tasked development or community development, and I think Mr. McCarty took the lead on that, on developing just kind of a better process for our food truck approvals. So a bit of backstory. So the original ordinance was adopted in 2014 and then was expanded in 2017 to cover more community groups. And that food truck activity was limited mostly to events, the Rotary, the Lions Club, the schools, as well as catering for large employers and HOA events. So in the last 10 years, food trucks have become a bigger business. You now have brick and mortar entrepreneurs that are now getting into having food trucks as kind of like a side business. And post-COVID, they've also been a big thing in HOAs. Taco Tuesdays, Food Truck Fridays, just, families that don't want to cook, especially in the summer. And then mobile bars and food trucks at bars have become a huge thing. Mobile bars the last couple years. So the goals when we set out on this was to create a clear process on how to get a mobile food vendor approved, what body that goes in front of, how to encourage food trucks at events, continue to encourage food trucks at events, and how to provide protections for our brick and mortar restaurants, but also businesses that rely on food trucks, such as Four Finger, Grand Junction, kind of those kind of alcohol vending restaurants. So some highlights from our new ordinance. It now goes through the temporary use and events process. That was something that the previous ordinance completely bypassed the community development department. So this approval is now delegated to staff, and any variances are handled by the BZA. So say there's a vendor that wants to park in, say a parking lot during off hours, not necessarily tied to a special event. They could then go in front of the BZA, and the BZA could go through their findings of fact and determine whether or not they would meet the criteria for that. One-time events require a permit each occurrence, and there's also an option for reoccurring events at a single location to have a valid permit for 3 years. So, for example, an HOA, if they like to have a rotating cast of food trucks, once a week in the summer, they could get that permit one time, establish where that location is, agree to follow all the rules, and then just rotate the different food trucks in, as long as those food trucks are licensed through our food truck licensing process. So this will be required for special events, neighborhood events, breweries and distilleries, events held on public park property, and mobile food vehicles that serve alcohol. The serving alcohol is a big one. Staff has to verify that a temporary alcohol vending permit is applied for every time, because that's how mobile bars exist. They are required to get a temporary permit every occurrence from the state. So exclusions from this new temporary use and events permit would be city, township, and county events, Westfield, Washington school events, private events for catering purposes as long as they're not at public parks, and PUD specifically permitting food trucks, such as I think Urban Acres and Urban Apples and Urban Vines, excuse me. So prohibited locations citywide within the right-of-way, within 100 feet of any restaurant or dining area during their operating hours. There is a way for the restaurant to kind of sign off and say they're okay with it being closer to proximity, and within 100 feet of US 31 or the US 32 right-of-ways, as well as Park Street and Grand Park. And we're still looking at the exact geographic extent of Park Street and Grand Park. Subject to change. This is kind of a placeholder, this quick screenshot of the map. So just some general locations: shall not obstruct any street, park within an intersection, must provide waste containers, and you have to take the trash away. You can't, just throw it in somebody else's dumpster. Cannot draw utilities from the right-of-way. There's some limited operating hours, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., no overnight parking, and in compliance with lighting, signage, and nuisance standards. So no flashing lights, no, annoying loud music, limited signage, certainly no blinking or flashing signs. So I mentioned earlier the food truck business license step. So the second step of this, after this PUD piece, is an update to our municipal code to repeal the prior 2014 ordinance and just better cement these rules and regulations. So as part of this, any food truck that wants to operate within the city, regardless of if they're operating at city events or county events or just for an HOA, they would have to get a food truck business license. And in that, staff would check their tax EIN record, that they carry insurance, that whoever's operating the food truck is a licensed driver, basically covering all of the bases that their operation is valid and they're operating within state and county laws. So this license is valid for 1 year. Fee is $150 per year, with a reduced fee after June 30th. This falls within the Indiana Code parameters for county health department licensing fees, which is an ongoing thing. I'm sure President Tam could elucidate us a little bit better on that. Fee exemptions include churches, schools, nonprofits, and then veteran-owned businesses per Indiana Code. And of course, there are penalties, warnings, tickets, suspensions. And going into this, we wanted to make sure that we didn't kind of make a loophole where the penalties were not, doing business was more lucrative than the penalties. that you would continue to just rack up fines because you made more money operating the food truck. So at the request of some different people, we tried to make the penalties worth it, I guess. Convincing. Yeah, go ahead.
It says it goes down 100.
It goes, yeah, my mistake, goes down to $100.
Okay.
I left a,
Yeah, let's
That's
update that, because that would be a heck of a deal.
yeah, no.
$50 for a half a year.
Lauren, a question on this one too. For exemptions,
Yes.
how does that work for the Cool Creek Park, which is a Hamilton County park within Hamilton County that has food vendor trucks and during their Cool Creek concerts and other events like that? Or would they fall under that exemption?
So they would fall under the, oops. They would fall under the temporary use exemption, so they wouldn't require a temporary use permit for every occurrence. They would still require a food truck license, the food trucks that operate at those events, but the fee would be waived. I'm missing it from this slide. But yeah, we will add government organizations to the fee exemptions.
And for the sales tax associated with that, for food and beverage, is that exempt for non-for-profits? And how is that collected later?
I am not sure on that. So Councilman McCarty and I were discussing this a little bit earlier.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
It's a retail transaction, so food and beverage taxes should be collected, as well as sales tax, unless the nonprofit is actually running the food truck. Then that gets into a whole nother matter that we don't have the legal time to discuss tonight. But is the $150 a county, or is that a Westfield fee?
That is a Westfield fee, but it is within the proposed, I believe, $200 limit for the county permits. Yes, so the $150 will be for Westfield, and it would
Okay.
cover our reviews.
Okay. We probably need to talk a little bit more about how that interplays with the county, the municipality, and the state moving forward, but not necessarily here for this evening as well. But state sales tax, though, and food and beverage tax collection should occur because they're making the transaction inside Westfield, which has a meals tax.
Thank you, Patrick.
Well, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So just a quick recap, just the big points when you do and don't need a permit. So if you're serving alcohol, yes, you always need a temporary use and event permit. If you're in a PUD, permits food trucks at a city or Westfield or government organization event. At a private event, no permit is required. And then there are some finer details for HOA events and whether or not the HOA is truly the temporary use permit holder or if it's a one-time thing. But happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you very much, and thank you for significant work. I think, Councilor Dart, did you have a question?
So a private event would be somebody in a neighborhood just having a party at their home. They have a truck pull up for 2 hours of serving food. No permit required?
So if it's on private property for private guests,
They park it on the street, though. Park the trailer, the food truck on the street, which is likely
yeah,
going to happen.
it would not be permitted on the street unless it is a private street operated by an HOA, but
It wouldn't, that's unlikely.
yeah, unlikely.
So, but if it's in the driveway,
That would be a private event for private guests and does
Okay.
not fall under our special events definition.
how does a city plan to communicate that? Because I've been to events in neighborhoods, the trucks have been on the street, the trucks have been in the driveway, no one's questioning it because everybody around them is invited to the party generally.
Right.
So how do you enforce and communicate this so that there's consistency within the city? Because I just see a lot of events happening, not being done properly, not being reported, having nosy neighbors reporting when they,
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first step starts with the HOAs. In this specific scenario with when you have residential parties and private parties, it really would be the HOAs that they have people on the streets, they know what's happening more than the city ever would at any given time. Just making them aware of what our regulations are and how we can all work together to make this work. It will also require significant just kind of communications outreach through our communications department. We do plan to publish a approved vendor list, just listing all of the approved vendors within Westfield, so someone who's, say, planning a party can pull that up and say, you know, I like Chef Karen's Tachos truck. I'll hire her.
Tagging on to John's question, if somebody did that today, is that in violation, or is this based on the new regulations?
So, do you want me to jump in real quick, Lauren?
This is a gray area.
Yeah, so, and that, to both of the questions, that's why we're doing this. Because for the last 10 years, there's been this subjectivity with our food trucks being main approvals at council, but then also kind of to Councilor Dart's point of just this wild, wild west of trucks going anywhere that they sort of see fit, whether it be cooperating with HOAs just because the rules haven't been clear, or popping up in certain parking lots, or this and that. So again, that is why we are doing this, to create a clear and concise process that we can communicate to the community. And part of that is, I want to thank the administration for bringing back the weekend meetings. That's where we can communicate with the HOAs, and then also enable them to really govern themselves, and that's through the temporary use and events permit, with it being good for 3 years. We're sort of creating these food truck zones within HOA-owned property that they are governing themselves amongst approved food trucks that have gone through the process already, and that's to safeguard literally everyone, because I know my HOA as well has been caught by the county, because we've had a food truck that didn't have county health permits, but they had Marion County health permits. So that's why we need this safeguard for the checks and balances.
And follow-up question, it might be in another article, it may not be shown in this one here, enforcement. So whose responsibility is it for enforcement? Is it the community development department? Is it the police department? Is it a partnership between it? And then just to tag on to the educational portion of it, there's going to be a lot of education that's going to also have to occur internally within the city staff to understand what the new rules and regs are.
Definitely. Yeah, at this time, it's assumed to be our code enforcement within community development. Open to discussions if you guys think that there's another option.
And again, that's why this is being introduced tonight, so we can have this dialogue, and it'll be another couple months of working this out in APC and coming back and having conversations with you, the public, and so forth. And just try to improve this any way that we need to before really enacting this.
So let me inject in here. We have a code enforcement department. They'll be the ones that will be enforcing this. I'm not going to have law enforcement showing up at a food truck, and that's just not interactions we want to have with the public. They've got other things to deal with. So we have a code enforcement group, and they'll do the best they can to stay up on top of that.
And code enforcement's been out in a couple neighborhoods. So thank you, Ms. Gillingham, on the distinction between a food truck, and that same food truck can also then suddenly the next day be a private caterer. Some food trucks, they may look like a food truck, but they always act as a private catering event. So trying to make that distinction is welcomed and a good thing to be doing. Walk me through HOAs, because I think this will be the one that we'll get a lot of questions on. There's a lot of HOAs or neighborhood events that happen throughout the year. Many have annual events. Mm-hmm. Some of them have events throughout the entire year, intermittently, some more scheduled than others. How is that handled? So that permit that the HOA would have would be valid for 3 years?
That is correct. So essentially, the HOA would be the holder of the permit. So they will submit an application to my department, submit a site plan, basically saying the food trucks that we invite will be located, within this area. They will draw their utilities from our clubhouse. They'll be out of the right of way. Basically showing that they're meeting all of our requirements. Just the question mark is what the exact food truck is going to be. And then for the next 3 years, or until something on the site changes in a way that requires a new permit or a new site review, the HOA can hire whatever licensed food truck they want to show at this event, to show up at their events without, more city involvement.
Yeah, so some of the events where they already historically have consistently blocked off roads, done food trucks, some of those go into grassy areas, some of those are on streets consistently. One may be right in front of my house, basically, which is fine for me. But the challenge is, I mean, that they're going to be set up on that roadway near community, neighborhood, open space. How do we handle that position? I mean, I think the APC can work through that, but
Yeah, and in my neighborhood, same thing happens
Yeah.
where they get a special approval from the city, say for the 4th of July, to have a 4th of July block party. And so with it being shut down, then they've already received that special approval. If there's additional language we need to include here just to have that safeguard, then we can definitely look at that.
Yeah, we will definitely hash this out in very fine detail with the APC. Yeah, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking maybe a waiver from Board of Public Works to allow street closures, just what we usually would do for a neighborhood block party. But yes, that is something to delve into further.
thank you.
Caitlin, for code enforcement versus a citation, would code enforcement come back in front of the council for if somebody's contesting it, or does that go in front of legal system?
I would have to look into that and get back to you. If you're saying if code enforcement issues something and then it's in violation, I would have to look into it, but I can get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Just to wrap up a little bit, I really want to thank Lauren, Caleb Ernest, Will with Code Enforcement, Westfield Welcome, Parks Department. Again, this has been a collaborative effort over the last 2 months between multiple staff and departments to just get us to this point. We've looked at other municipalities from South Bend down to Evansville. I mean, literally looking at all options across the state of what others do. And I think we've definitely put a good foot forward here, and I look forward to, again, receiving further comments from fellow councilors in public as we work through the APC process. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCarty. Any further discussion? Thank you as well. Thank you, Councilor McCarty, and frankly, our planning department. I know this is quite a bit of work, and there's a lot of moving targets as well. Moving on to ordinance 24-48, which is amending provisions in the Westfield, Washington Township Unified Development Ordinance, tree bank. Lauren, you're up again, and then I don't know if you're going to call on Chris as well.
Let me find the right ordinance here. Can you pull it up, Chris? This, Chris? I don't know what I did. Oh. Clicked away. That one, please. So this one is much simpler, blessedly. So this dovetails pretty nicely with what Director McConnell mentioned earlier in regards to just our tree planting requirements. Our UDO, to give our UDO credit, I do think that the landscape section is not half bad. It is certainly stronger requirements than a lot of places have. However, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all, especially if you have sites that have easements, just size limitations. If it's an odd shape, you run into visibility triangle issues where you can't plant trees within a certain distance of a right-of-way. So for those difficult sites where you can't feasibly plant, previously we require that they either go through a variance process, in some cases where they're not in a PUD or in a PUD that's friendly to variances, or they go through a whole PUD amendment, which is overkill for 50 trees, in my opinion. So in this process, in the scenario where you, for example, couldn't fit a few trees because of a utility issue, a site-specific issue, you can then apply to the Director of Parks and Recreation or their designee and argue your case. Say, I think that we should be able to waive these 20 trees or whatever, and then all waived trees would then be subject to a mandatory $300 fee. So instead of having to be forced to maybe plant trees that aren't going to live or are going to later have to be pulled out for one reason or another, they would just directly pay into this fund.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
So is it the developer that makes a decision? Or, and like, will the city be like, no, there's too many trees there, you have to go this route? And then secondly, does this ever happen with like shrubs and other types of plantings as well? And is there a plan for that?
So it does happen with shrubs. We focused on trees in this go-around just because shade trees are a little bit easier to tackle than different gallon sizes of shrubs. And as far as whether it's the developer or city staff, it really could be both. So a lot of the times when projects go through the review process, the developer will submit their initial landscape plan. It will go through planning, my department, and then go through Public Works. And Public Works will check and make sure that there's, sufficient clearance between underground utilities, sufficient clearance from sidewalks, and they will literally give back a landscape plan with a third of the trees X'd out because they're in non-permitted locations and they have to be relocated. So yeah, all of that is to say that it's usually at that step where the developer and Parks and Rec or Public Works, which was previously House Parks and Rec, they kind of come to the agreement that maybe this isn't feasible.
Any other questions, comments this evening? So this is just the first introduction this evening. As stated on the agenda as well, you have an upcoming APC public hearing September 3rd as well with a potential workshop and recommendation. So we look forward to seeing that when the APC is done with that. We'll move on to the greatest show on earth, which is ordinance 24-49 presented by the Mayor Willis, which is our upcoming 2025 budget introduction. Mayor?
Thank you, I appreciate it. Pull up the presentation if you would. So just for public consumption, my staff has been working on, I shouldn't say just my staff, the clerk treasurer and the council have all been working on their respective budgets dating back to May. So this has been a long process to get us here. And we took a different approach this year than the city of Westfield has taken in the past. It's called zero-based budgeting. And what that basically means is every year your budget starts at zero in every line item, and you have to re-justify every expense that you put on your budget. Why do you do that? Well, primarily because over time, budgets get inflated. 10 years ago, we might have budgeted for X, and it just stays on the budget and continues to grow, even though it's really not a need for the city moving forward. In fact, we found a couple of items that had been on the budget. We're not sure how long, and we're really not sure what it was for. We just know it was money we didn't need to spend. And so it was a very good, especially as a first-time mayor, this is my first budget as mayor, and it was really healthy for us to go line by line through every dollar being spent and having my staff re-justify. I personally had cut on this budget 3 times. I'm not sure how many times Danielle and the directors cut on it, but I'm sure it's many more times than I did. So we've put a lot of thought in this. It's not a perfect budget, but I believe it's a very strong budget. And we'll go through this here this evening. Next slide. Oh, and one other thing I'll say is I have met with every single city councilor in groups of 1 or 2, upwards of 3 to 4 hours per presentation, and we went line by line through everything. So we're not going to do that here this evening, but attached to this meeting, you will see the full depth of this budget, and we encourage everybody to go out there, look at it, and understand it. But for the sake of time tonight, we're going to just hit the wave tops. So my 4 pillars of success, I've talked a lot about with my staff, council, and members of the public, that as I was going through my transition of becoming mayor, I had a transition team that helped me develop these 4 pillars. And we're holding our city accountable, my staff accountable to these 4 pillars. And every dollar that we're spending hits at least 2 of these pillars, if not more. It was important to me that if we're going to spend the dollar of taxpayer money, it better address a priority of my administration moving forward. Those 4 pillars are public safety excellence, transparency and accountability, quality growth and livability, and empowerment and continuous improvement. So the budget timeline that we're working off of, we noticed this for a public hearing on August the 16th. Today, we're actually presenting and holding a public hearing. And the plan and the goal is to vote on this for approval at our first meeting in September on September the 9th. If we can somehow accomplish that, it's been a long time since the city has come in this far in advance. So I'm really proud of the fact that we're ahead of schedule, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to do so. Some highlights for consumption. First off, this budget will keep our city tax rate flat. It's currently 0.7175. That does not include school referendums, and there will be no adjustment to that city tax rate in 2025. You're going to see a significant increase in investment in road infrastructure, and we have a slide to address that here in just a few minutes. We're going to continue to invest in public safety to include a new fire station and new headquarters for the police department. And for the first ever, we're going to be investing in a new program, provided the council approves this. It's a grant program for neighborhoods that allow HOAs to submit each year a grant for a project in their neighborhood. Other communities are doing that. We have not in Westfield, and I'm excited to offer this up as a way, especially as we have neighborhoods starting to age a bit, to continue to keep our communities beautiful and the quality that I think our residents expect. Fiscal strength, the civil city budget is $124,630,158 roughly, and a few cents. Our operational budget will be $78,265,507. This excludes bond payments, and there will be a bond that we're going to take out for infrastructure. The budget is balanced. I love putting this in there, but in full transparency, we're required by government to have a balanced budget. So this isn't anything super exciting other than we've done our job and it is indeed balanced. We have very, very strong cash reserves. If anything, our cash reserves are a little too strong, and we'll get to that here in just a little bit. But by the end of 2025, we will have roughly a $31 million rainy day fund in cash reserves. That is roughly 56% of our operating budget, and that would set us at the top end of Hamilton County in terms of rainy day funds, which is a good thing, but also it is your taxpayer dollars that we're holding, and we need to be smart about how much of that we're holding. And then just a plug that most people here know, we did have a successful audit from SBOA with, I think, one minor finding. So our auditing has been strong, compliments of our clerk treasurer and the city staff, and we're certainly appreciative of that as well. Next slide. So here's a diagram showing our cash reserves. In 2022 is roughly 47 million. 2023 was up to roughly 56 million. And now you're seeing a downward trajectory into next year, at the end of next year, roughly 31 million. Why has it been climbing so much? There's lots of reasons. I'm certainly not here to throw past councils and administrations under the bus. But the safe way to say this is simply, through the past budget cycles, we did not appropriate every dollar that the city had coming in. There was a lot of things that were cut out of the spirit of fiscal responsibility, but I think some people maybe didn't understand that just because I cut $10 million from the budget doesn't mean I don't have that $10 million still coming to us through taxpayer revenue. So the way the budgets were handled in the past, we had a ton of money that was unappropriated, and it just kept building and building and building. This is a depiction of our tax rate. Back in 2018, it was roughly 0.8, and it has slowly dropped down to where we're currently at. This will be the third year in a row that we will keep it flat at 0.7175. So why keep it flat? As the public safety needs continue to grow, Station 84 comes online, Station 85 comes online. We're hiring more police officers due to the growth. If you let it drop too much, it makes it impossible to fund your public safety and the personnel that come with that. So we're trying to, I envision over the next several years, we're going to keep that rate flat. with the goal of once our final fire station comes online, we'll start to let it drop a little bit more. Just a comparison to our sister cities here in Hamilton County. Carmel's at 0.78, Fishers is at 0.71, slightly below us. Noblesville's 1.1, and Westfield's 0.72 roughly. Based on what I know, coming this year in 2025, unless something changes, Westfield will have the lowest tax rate in Hamilton County. I think that's significant. Why? Because we are the fastest growing city in Indiana and the 6th fastest in America. So for us to be able to keep that tax rate flat while we're seeing rapid growth is truly an accomplishment. I won't take credit for all that. This has been work that's been done for, quite frankly, over a decade. And I'm proud to be a part of that on council now as mayor. But there's a lot of hands in this cookie jar, and we should all feel good about where Westfield is today. I can remember when I moved to Westfield 20 years ago, we had the worst tax rate in Hamilton County, and many people didn't want to come to Westfield because of how high it was. And now we're at the very bottom of that scale, and that's a great thing for our residents. Infrastructure investment. So we talked about this. This is where the budget's going up significantly in terms of the spend. And when you see the cash reserves that are falling off, it's being spent in the world of infrastructure. We're going to be investing $42.5 million on infrastructure, and that's just starting that process. If you were here earlier in the year when I unveiled our comprehensive infrastructure plan, it's a $180 million investment into our roads. Quite frankly, I view this as a catch-up. This just gets us caught up to the growth that we've experienced to date. This does not address future development, and every time we approve a new subdivision or a new commercial project, needs come with that in infrastructure. So, folks, we're behind. We got work to do, but we're going to start I wouldn't say chipping away. We're going to start chunking away at those challenges, because I've heard loudly on the campaign trail, and I'm hearing it loudly as mayor, that people are frustrated with our roads. They're too narrow. We still have country roads where they should be city roads. We lack roundabouts. We lack adequate trails. You name it. So we hear you, and we're going to be addressing that in this budget. This is just a list, and I won't go through this in detail, but this is a list of all the projects that we're going to be starting or that will be ongoing in this calendar year. I'll just to quickly calibrate you to this. If you see post-bid, that means we are in the design stage of that project. Where you see pre-bid, where you see pre-bid, let me take that back. That is where we're in the design stage. Post-bid means the project has been bid out and construction is starting. Where you see a D in that far right-hand column, D stands for debt and C stands for cash. So you're going to see roughly, when you add it all up, $11.725 million is coming from cash for these projects. $30.75 million is coming from a bond, with a total investment, again, of $42.475 million. Community investments, other things that we're going to be investing in this budget cycle. First off, landscaping, roundabouts. We have not invested in roundabouts in quite some time. It started with COVID, and the council made the decision at the time to be fiscally smart, uncertain about where budgets were going because of COVID, that we would do the roundabouts, but we would not landscape those roundabouts. So we have some pretty bland and ugly roundabouts. There's also safety issues that come with it. As you're barreling down the road in the middle of the night, if you don't see something in the horizon that's breaking up that landscape, it's easy to get passive in your driving and end up in the roundabout or slamming on the brakes because you're at a roundabout. Not to mention, again, I think beautification of our city, we owe it to our residents. If we're going to do roundabouts, let's do it. We don't have to do massive art like you see in Carmel, but, you know, strategic landscaping, trees, shrubs, something to help beautify our community is something we're looking at. We're going to be investing, we're asking the council to invest $1 million in roundabout landscaping next year. That will cover three roundabouts. That sounds like a lot of money, but they're in key areas of our city that will require a much more extensive landscaping project. And I believe 1 or 2 of those roundabouts have art in it. And no, again, it's not metal art like you see in Carmel. Neighborhood HOA grants, we've asked the council to invest $150,000 to seed that program. If they approve that, we'll be coming back with more details in I don't know if it's a resolution or an ordinance to approve that program. And I think from the feedback I've gotten from the council, I think everybody's excited about the potential what that program can be. And then we've talked a little bit today about tree preservation and planting efforts. My vision is to invest $70,000 in additional plantings throughout our community. So here's just a quick, without a lot of details, a quick snapshot of what our budget looks like by department. And again, if you want additional details on what's involved, you'll see that on our website. So I just want to go through real quickly. I'm not going to go through the right-hand side of what series the dollars are going to. Just understand when you see that 100 series is personnel, 200 series is supplies, 300 series is services. But what I do want to go over is priorities for each department and brief you all on what we're asking for in that budget. First off, for administration, we have budgeted some money to do some best practice site visits. I'm a firm believer in not reinventing the wheel when you need to, when you don't need to, and there are many communities throughout our nation that offer best practices that we can go and explore and meet with their staff and learn from their mistakes and their successes. For example, this year, this is not in this budget, but this year we're going to Peachtree, Georgia to look at golf cart ordinances and how they've been able to pull it off in Peachtree. We're also going to be asking for a headcount addition to add another attorney. Caitlin is phenomenal, but Caitlin, like all attorneys, practice in a particular area. Right now, we have paid for this year, sitting in August, more money to law firms for consulting services related to zoning and APC and development matters. That we could pay an in-house person to do. So when you project that out over a year, that will be a cost savings to the residents by bringing that legal service in-house. When you compare us to Fishers, Carmel, Noblesville, they have 2, 3, 4 attorneys. Last year we had none. We've got one this year. We're growing. We're catching up. We'll still have to pay for outside legal services, whether it be tort or other types of legal matters that the city gets involved in, so that won't go away, but we will see a reduction in that line item. And then staff training and continuing education. You're going to see that in every department in the city. I'm really pushing hard to ensure we have a world-class staff, and to do that, they need trained. Just like in any other business or any other company, and the city hasn't always done a great job of investing in their employees, and we will be doing that under my administration. I won't dive too deep into the city council. I'll just show you that that's how they've broken it down, and it's a pretty straightforward budget, to be quite honest with you, and I believe it's a step downwards from what past councils have asked for, so that's a win. Clerk treasurer, I won't dive too deep into that, but just some of the priorities that Marla has from her side. They're reducing payroll services appropriation by almost half due to cancellation of some unused software. Again, going through and looking at every dollar we spend, you'll be amazed what you find. Funding to complete an annual comprehensive financial report called an ACFR. This is necessary for us to get a AAA bond rating. I'm committed that day one that we would get that before I am either voted out, die, or retire, whichever comes first. And we are well on our way, quite frankly, to that. We've already gotten a bond rating that's higher than the city has had in the past, and we are well on our way to achieve that. But that costs money to get that done. Funding to complete a gap audit, and then also staff and training and continuing education with Marla's staff. Communications, you're going to see increased dollars being spent on advertising and marketing for community events. And then we've got this little thing called State Road 32 that's getting ready to go down for construction. It's going to require extensive communication because it will be a huge inconvenience for not only our residents, but for the businesses that lie on that road. So we've increased our budget next year for that. We're going to continue our quarterly newsletter to all households. Hopefully you all have received those and that you're enjoying reading those. But we're going to continue that next year and may actually even grow it a bit in terms of the number of pages and content that you receive. Communications is asking for additional headcount to support new initiatives and balance workloads. Some of the things that I would like to do, for example, I'd like to have a veterans coalition. I'd like to create a youth council for our high school and our young residents. These things are very time intensive. Every other city in Hamilton County has somebody in their communications department that addresses and that leads those initiatives. And I think it's time in Westfield. So I'm asking for a headcount addition to do that. I've mentioned that when I was running for office that I wanted a transparency dashboard where you could get onto our city website and see highlights of things like crime rates, increased assessed values due to investments, anything and everything that a resident, quite frankly, should have at their fingertips. And we need some money to obviously build that out. It will take consulting services to get that off the ground. And then you'll see this with every department, staff training, and continuing education. Community development. You're going to see one of the biggest priority for community development next year will be our comprehensive plan. We have started the funding of that to get that off the ground, but there'll be some continuing invoices that will happen in 2025 for that. We are working on right now selecting a contractor to finish out our master planning of the revitalization of downtown. I completed phase 1 before I became mayor, but we need phase 2, 3, and 4 done, and we need it done quickly. Quite frankly, we're getting pressure already for projects outside of the vision I've created for phase 1. And I want to be very thoughtful in every project that we allow to happen in our downtown area. You're going to see $100,000 for the grant program that we talked about. You're also going to see $30,000 for creation of an unsafe building fund for site cleanup, resulting from code enforcement that happens at the city level. And then again, staff training and continuing education. Yes, sir. We were throwing in there tree preservation investments as well as part of that. We still haven't figured out, and that's something that we need to determine. Certainly, we'll collaborate with you guys. Do we want to have a tree granting program under that, or is that something separate handled by the Parks Department? But that's a total cost. Economic development, you're going to see funds for land acquisition and funding for downtown parking garages. That actually will come out of the RDC, but it's part of the overall city budget. Land acquisition near Graham Park. We're not quite sure yet what's happening there and what we're going to need, but we wanted to be safe and have some funding there. Either the city will be involved in land acquisition or most likely funds for parking garages to change land use in the park and allow us to create an experience with a new village inside of Graham Park. A streetscape project for Park Street, we're going to fund that next year. That will create a vision for future development of everything that happens on that Park, Mill, Jersey, and Westfield Boulevard block. We have a vision. We're trying to create that vision for future development to hold them to a standard. We'll be investing additional money for marketing to promote the city's vision for tourism and economic development. Believe it or not, when a company reaches out to us, I have nothing to give them about the city of Westfield. I don't have a pamphlet. I don't have a marketing video. I got nothing. And when you look at most businesses have that at their disposal to sell their community, and we're going to be hiring a firm to help us with that next year. We're leaving a little bit of cash in reserves for funding economic development incentive packages. That may or may not happen, but if a corporation, let's say another Abbott Labs approaches Westfield and they need $1 million of financial incentives to come to our community, we want to be able to react quickly and have that in reserve if necessary. We may not need it, but again, you want it if you need it, you need it, and you need it now. And then, as we've discussed, staff training and continuing education. Facilities and events, we're asking for an additional headcount to support a more robust maintenance program. I'm basically looking to hire a facilities maintenance manager. And that involves not only having the expertise to run an appropriate maintenance department, but to have the technology like a CMMS, Computer Maintenance Management System is what that stands for. If you've ever come from manufacturing or other types of businesses, They have a very robust maintenance program to ensure their equipment is up and running. And as the city starts to invest in more facilities and spending millions of your taxpayer dollars, we want to make sure the utilities and other types of equipment we're getting as much life out of as we can. So a maintenance program will give us more reliability and have a more structured way how maintenance is being done. Right now, if you need, if air conditioning's down or you need a project in your office, you call Matt Deck and he'll put you on the list. I, as mayor, have no way to pull up all the work orders, what's active, how quickly is it getting filled, how much are we spending. These are systems we need to take the city to that next level, and we're asking for a lot of funds in this group, in this department to create that. Continued funding for popular community events, and then staff training and continuing education. Fire department, it is the elephant in every budget's room. These guys, it takes a lot to run a fire department, and this is one area where you do not want to chintz on. We'll be hiring 24 additional personnel to staff Station 84. That will be coming online at the end of next year, and we'll be hiring for that right away so that we can start to train them. So when that fire station comes online, we have people that can occupy it. So that will be an ongoing task in 2025. Investing in paramedic capabilities by sending 2 employees to paramedic school. These are not headcount additions. This is building redundancy within our own staff. If you know how many calls we make, 911 calls and ambulance services that comes out of the fire department, you need every able-body that you can that's trained. We're going to increase 400 series line due to the need of fixture, furniture, and equipment for Station 84. That's just something we have to do to get that station online. We're going to be adding 2 outdoor warning sirens to increase our reach for our alarm system, i.e. tornadoes. And again, staff training and continuing education. Human resources, this budget looks like it's grown exponentially. It really hasn't. We're doing some things differently on how I like to see the budget. So benefits will all fall under human resources moving forward. In the past, every department had to budget for their staff. It's just easier for us to put it under HR. So what looks like a mega increase in budget is really just appropriating money a little bit differently than what we've done in the past. And you'll see that as a first budget under priorities. We're going to be expanding our pro-team wellness initiative for first responders and also UDS screenings for first responders in the fire department. We'll be implementing an advanced HRIS and citywide wellness program, funding for compliance-related HR training. That's ongoing with HR. You can't take a chance of not being up to date on the most recent laws being passed, and then budgeting for staff training and continuing education. When it comes to staff training, some of that under HR is for the entire city, like leadership training, sexual harassment, other types of training that your staff has to have annually. That's falling under the budget of HR. Informatics, just like with HR, we're consolidating all software for the most part under IT. Even if it's software for a different department, Chris's group owns it. They have to manage it and maintain it. So we're going to move all of that under his budget. So again, it will look like his budget's much larger, has grown much more than it really has. We have to begin construction of a new city private fiber ring. That's just the result of the fact that we're moving our headquarters. The police headquarters, everything originates out of there, a public safety building right now. It will reside with the police headquarters moving forward, all of our servers and activities, and so this fiber ring has to be moved and reconstructed, and that is quite expensive. Already discussed this, we're consolidating citywide software under IT. We'll be upgrading our Wi-Fi access points in all city buildings and disaster recovery archiving technology. We'll be updating and increasing response time for our map imagery with use of drones, and budgeting for staff training and continuing education. For my budget, really, it's pretty streamlined. There is some money in there for me also to make those site visits, and also for budgeting for training and continuing education. For example, I'm heading to Boston in about 2 weeks with the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce, Purdue University, and Indiana University to talk about biotechnology and how we can create a biotechnology center here in central Indiana. So it's things like that that I'll be going to that will hopefully move the ball forward for our city. Parks and Recreation, we're going to be asking for a headcount addition for a forestry specialist. We've talked ad nauseum today about trees, and it's really hard to hold developers accountable when you don't have the staff to manage that or the expertise to know what you're looking at. So we're going to be, for the first time, hopefully have a forestry specialist that can start to put more shape around tree preservation and making sure that we're doing the right things for our community. We're increasing parks programming opportunities in the community. We'll be completing Simon Moon Phase 2. Phase 1 is wrapping up later this fall. We'll be constructing restrooms at Freedom Trail Park. It's a little hidden park that most people don't know we have, unless your kids play sports. We'll be constructing additional playground within the city. We talked about the roundabout landscaping, and then also budgeting for staff training and continuing education. Almost there, folks. Police department, another big budget for our city. Between the police and fire, they take almost half of our budget. It is what it is, and it's an area, again, you just do not want to chintz on. We're going to be adding 5 sworn officers to our lineup. It's just quite frankly needed because of growth. And we'll continue to see, not quite at the same rate the fire department is seeing, but we'll continue to see increase in headcount over the next several years as the city grows. One of the things that Chief King did when he came on board is he took a look at how we're staffed. We've identified several positions where we had sworn officers doing a job that a civilian could do. And so he's doing some streamlining, but through that, we'll be asking for a civilian headcount addition as well to work inside the police department. We'll be investing in technology, expanding our data storage for officer body cams. We'll be doing also adding some flock camera systems, which are highly effective in catching bad guys and girls. Design and construction of our new police headquarters will come in full swing in 2025. We're investing in a new scheduling software that's more streamlined to public safety than what we currently have, and then budgeting for staff training and continuing education as well. Public Works. Increasing 2025 resurfacing program by $300,000. This is to reflect NDOT's increase from $1 million to $1.5 million in the community crossing program. That is a grant program that we've been lucky to get for several years now to spend on road resurfacing. There is a match component to that. And with that increase of what NDOT's willing to do, we have an increased commitment for our match. And so that's where that $300,000 comes from. We'll be investing in ADA curb ramp replacements and some trip hazard removals on sidewalks, especially on Union Street and other areas. We've got some work to do there. Design and construction of several capital improvement plan projects. We've already revealed what those look like and the depth of projects being done. Inspection and master plan for small structure culverts, and budgeting for staff training and continuing education. And then I will spend a lot of time here. We have other budget line that comes under Public Works. You've got local roads and streets, motor vehicle highway, road impact, and stormwater. These are all fees. Road impact and stormwater are local. LRS and MVH, or MVH are state taxes that the city gets from the state. And so those specific dollars have to be used in specific ways, and that is what we're showing for a budget for those 4 funds. So again, to recapture where we're at here, we presented tonight hoping for a vote on September 9th. And with that, I will open it up, I believe, to questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions for the mayor this evening? Comments? Oh, first, are we going to do a public hearing now? We have to do that first. Thank you. We'll open up the public hearing for those interested in speaking this evening at 8:43. So anyone that would like to speak on the mayor's budget, please come forward. So seeing no one coming forward, we'll close the public hearing at 8:44 and open it up to council comments and conversation as well. Councilor Waniger.
Okay. First, Mayor, I appreciate the focus on public safety and infrastructure. I heard that as well on the campaign trail, that need more investment in our community. Glad to see the fire department moving forward, as well as the future public or police facility as well. In regards to the capital project list, that's pretty aggressive. That's a lot of projects to get done within 1 year. Couple things that I noticed was lacking was multi-use paths along roads and closing those gaps where maybe a development had previously occurred under another jurisdiction like the county, and no sidewalks were put in or multi-paths were put in, and would like to see maybe some of those funds be put towards that, especially with the golf cart ordinance that we're going to be looking at. That'll be a major sticking point that you can't get from point A to point B. On the police department side, electronic speed sign warnings and things like that for the flock system and camera. I know those are in there, but I'd like to see more of those in our community to help enforcement within our communities, especially around the Grant Park and the shopping center area. And then glad to see you're investing in a K-9 instead of having to go out and find somebody to fund that through a donation. And then lastly, the park's bathroom at Freedom Trail Park, that's way overdue. So appreciate that. It is a big bite, but as you had on that one slide, I think there was only like 5.6 million spent a couple of years ago. We do have the cash reserves to move this forward. It'll just be able to, how we're going to be able to sustain that in future years as we continue to grow.
Those are fair points. Just a couple of things. First off, with the K-9, I know I saw some things on Facebook. I'm like, what in the world are people talking about? So our K-9 capability right now is purely drug sniffing, and it's done a lot at the school level. If we had a perpetrator that was on the run, we do not have dogs capable of tracking down criminals, and so we have to send an officer in to chase them. So we're going to expand our capabilities. It was always planned that we were going to fund that. Chief Keene approached me about a local vendor that he wanted to use for lots of reasons, but it was about $25,000 more than what we could get from other vendors. And I didn't think that was a fair ask of the taxpayer, so I told him, if you can raise the money, you can use that person. And next thing I know, I see a GoFundMe page out there. So we do have a donor from, I believe it's from Arby's, that stepped up. So that has been funded. We will be using that local vendor. But the plan was always, and I know you guys were very supportive as well, of providing that K-9 capability. In terms of trails, we are budgeting for a couple of trails this year or next year to connect. One on Grassy Branch, north of State Road 32. The other is on 151st Street, just south of, the road that cuts Bridgewater in half. Those are two trails that dead end that we're going to connect and complete the trail system. But other than that, we've not had a formalized program for trails like we do with roads. We have technology where we scan roads once every 2 years. It gives it a rating. When it falls below a certain rating, that's when it gets on our radar screen to repair that road. We don't have it for trails. So I actually have a meeting scheduled, if not this week, early next week, with Public Works and the city engineer to discuss a similar plan that we're going to take over to trails. You're going to see in 2026, or next year for our 2026 budget, a more formalized program around trail maintenance, and probably a little bit higher ask than what we're asking right now. But until we had some rhyme to the reason, I didn't feel comfortable asking too much more. We have enough roads that need attention. I wanted to put our attention to that for our first year.
Thank you.
Yeah, just touch a couple things real quick. So I came on the council in the middle of budget season last year, and I really just want to give my compliments to the administration for this year's 2025's budget cycle. The communication, transparency, having all of us in, hearing our thoughts and concerns, it's been very much so appreciated. A couple of those that I had on my list at the beginning of the year, I want to make sure when we get to the budget process that we take care of public safety, take care of infrastructure, take care of our general employees, and we're doing that. So again, thank you for that. Touching on infrastructure real quick, the list that was shown on the presentation, it's got a little bit of something for everyone. It's got stuff out by me and then all over the community, so that's appreciated. And then also our HOAs, you touched on it. I've seen our neighboring communities do that. So starting off with with $150,000 to really provide this grant for our HOAs that are aging, as you said. It's awesome. I'd hope for that, so I'm glad that we're starting that. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I would just add real quickly, this format, if you don't like it, just my first run at it, let me know what you want to see next year. I want to try to give the wave tops and give the public a general understanding of the conversations we've had behind closed doors. But if there's a better format, we're certainly open to that feedback.
One more thing, Scott. Do you mind giving a little bit of background behind our rainy day fund and a tax levy appeal and like why we're doing that?
Yeah, so the state doesn't allow you just to sit on cash, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. It's your money that you're giving up to the city, and for us to sit on it and not invest it for the betterment of your lives is not the right thing for government to do. You either need to have a plan to spend it or you need to give it back. And in the past, we've just, again, allowed it to grow and grow and grow. We're being told by several people at the State House, our municipal advisor and our accountants have both advised us that you continue to sit on this much cash and you won't get certain types of funding right now that we get. For example, because of our rapid growth, we can file for a levy appeal, which gives us an additional revenue source to the city. It's worth a couple of $1 million a year. That is your money, folks. Unfortunately, with our rapid growth, the state caps us on how much we can grow our budget. So even though we have assessed values of X, I can only collect so much of that because the state takes the rest of that with that rapid growth. So you can file a levy appeal, which will give you additional revenue back. But if you're sitting on a mound of cash, the state's going to say, you don't need that appeal. You got too much money right now. And we do. We have too much cash right now. But shame on us, because we've got real needs in our community right now, and we've been sitting on this cash and not reinvesting in a way I think our residents demand us to do. So we're gonna bring it down in a responsible way. Again, we're still have a higher cash reserve by % of our budget than any other city in Hamilton County, and that's not going to change. We're going to be fiscally responsible with what we do, but we do need to spend that down. Another example is we're going after sports district around Grand Park. That allows us to capture sales tax and other types of revenue around that district that the state is foregoing and giving to communities like Westfield that have these sports districts like Grand Park. They're not going to let us have that, again, if we're sitting on a lot of cash. So the state, when they came and they looked at our plan, they looked at our comprehensive infrastructure plan, they knew we had plans to spend it. So they weren't too hard on us, but they did caution us in keeping too much cash moving forward. So we're trying to address that in this budget. We're not adding to our budget long-term fixed costs. They're going to continue to come up year after year after year. These are one-time spends, much needed spends. And what the cost of running our city is staying fairly flat to what we've done in the past. It's gone up a little bit with some headcount additions, especially in public safety. You're not seeing a huge increase in spending in regards to that.
Thank you, Councilor Herron, for taking my question as well. Appreciate it. Any other questions, discussion this evening? Mayor, real quick, on the PSDA piece, state law currently only allows one municipality per county. Unfortunately, Fishers beat the city of Westfield to the punch a couple of years ago. At this point. Just furthering that conversation on levy appeals, just so people, I may just kind of say it a little bit differently, not agreeing with you, frankly. The state caps your rate of growth. We exceed that rate of growth consistently year in, year out. We have done so, frankly, for a decade plus at this point. So when we actually grow, we receive not the full amount of what we should receive. So we have to plead to the state and state why we should get a levy appeal to claw back some dollars, frankly, that you all think that you're paying. And it goes back to your community. It does not. So we're trying to actually manage that for that request to get, frankly, our residents' tax dollars to get back to work for our residents, not to go to Carmel, not to go to somewhere else in that case. It does not make sense from a kitchen table math, family economics perspective. but it is something that we need to desperately play, frankly, the game according to Indiana law to try to really work that levy appeal. The PSDA, we are the 16th most visited sports facility in the country, and we do not realize any incremental sales tax growth based on what we generate. Frankly, the mayor's still looking from a fruit basket. The councilors are looking for something from Carmel or Fishers for the tax dollars that we send to Fishers in particular, which they now are able to capture through a PSDA in a specific area, even if it's somebody that spends, and the only reason why they're in town is because of Grand Park, but they spend their money in Fishers in that PSDA district. So those are some things, some inequities that we're trying to fix. The mayor's pretty focused on. It does interplay with our budget as you kind of look to manage revenues and expenses and so forth. I did want to take just one brief statement to piggyback on Victor, but I think it's worth saying. We do have HOAs that have some needs. I do have HOAs. All of us have HOAs that have needs. In particular, I'm going to argue for mine, obviously, but that is a great program, and I look forward to trying to work out those details because I know there's people that are very much already interested in that as well. Thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, we'll move on to City Council comments. Councilor McCarty, do you have a APC update?
Yeah, real quick. Last week, the APC met for our workshop meeting of the month, and on our consent agenda, we had the Story Cottage at Chatham, which is an approved use for a mental health living facility for the elderly. Got about 12 beds in it with a co-living kitchen, living room, etc. Really, when you look at their website and rendering, it looks beautiful. These facilities are already in, I mean, just looks like a home in Carmel and other areas of Hamilton County. And then our workshop items, iBeach 31 was back with renditions to their new building at the northeast corner of Grand Park Boulevard, 181st. It looks awesome. They'll be back at a future APC meeting for adoption. And then Ordinance 2437, which is the courtyards of Celio Ranch on 161st Street, just north of Viking Meadows. We just touched up a few minor things. Nothing really changed from their introduction outside of certain home access on the rear load, and then we did talk about infrastructure as well, and just for the public use, that is continue ongoing discussion of how to improve 161st and entrances to this possible future neighborhood as well as Viking Meadows. So that is all.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments this evening?
Today we had the Finance Committee. We meet once a month and we go over the finances for the city. Today we briefly discuss some different payment options at the city and how we want to move forward with those. And then we review the fund appropriation and revenue statements as well as those. That meeting is online if anybody's interested in watching that.
Thank you, Councilor Waniger. Any other comments from Council? Mayor?
I just have one comment. I've seen some of the posts out on Facebook about our newest roundabout on Union Street. Yes, it's quirky. We get that. But the long-term vision of Westfield Boulevard is going to be a thoroughfare for the city, originating from State Road 32 all the way down to that roundabout. So that turnoff or that T intersection coming off of Union, it's that way because we're trying to slow down and reduce the traffic on Union long-term and use Westfield Boulevard as your primary artery to get into the downtown area off of 161st Street and the US 31 intersection. So bear with us for the next couple years. You're gonna be like, why do we have this stop sign? It's coming, and you'll be glad that we have it there when it's all said and done. And with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mayor. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you. I usually don't.